At 4 a.m., cruising on station 100 miles out over the Black Sea, the pilot of a Ukrainian F-16 stares at a strobing red threat on his cockpit display. He has exactly one window to release an AGM-88 HARM missile into the heart of a Russian Panzer radar. If he misses, the 20 drones currently skimming the tree line will be neutralized immediately. This mission is critical because Russia is desperately trying to hide the fact that it lost 60% of its Iskander force last week. Moscow spent millions trying to move these launchers in total secrecy, hoping to sneak them into Crimea under the cover of night. Margin for error 0. Time remaining 14 seconds. This calculated chaos actually began 13 minutes earlier with a single thermal signature on a highway that Moscow thought was invisible. Last week, Ukraine pulled off a masterclass that left the Kremlin speechless. 60% of Russia's Iskander launchers in the southern sector gone, vaporized in one devastating night. Now Moscow is in full panic mode. They're desperately trying to salvage what's left 6 battered Iskander M launchers and 8 transloaders loaded onto a secret convoy racing down the A290 highway under cover of darkness. Destination, the Sevastopol shipyards in Crimea, Russia's safest repair shop. If this convoy makes it, Putin gets his long-range hammer back by spring. If it doesn't, the Russian southern front loses its big punch for the whole of 2026. To the Russian commanders, this convoy isn't visible. They've wrapped it in their best toys. Krasuka 4 electronic warfare flooding the air with digital noise, Panzer S-1 escorts ready to shred anything that moves, and S-400 radars watching from Crimea. They filtered out every blip, every clutter. They're confident no drone can touch them. High above, at 9,800 feet, a lone Ukrainian PD-2 drone is silently circling the night sky. Its F-Flyer thermal camera zooms in on the highway below, spotting 18 large heat signatures moving steadily, even though the Russians have turned off all lights. Those damaged launchers and transloaders are still radiating heat from their massive engines and hydraulic systems, a dead giveaway in the freezing darkness. The PD-2 doesn't attack, it simply beams the live coordinates back to headquarters. That single thermal truth is all Ukraine needs. At exactly 4 a.m., 100 miles over the Black Sea, the 2 Ukrainian F-16 Vipers reach their designated release point. For the pilots, this isn't a dogfight, it is a clinical execution of a digital trap. Viper 1 Pickles, releasing the decoys. 4 ADM-160 mauled units drop from the wings of the F-16s. These $120,000 $1,000 devices are essentially digital gaslighters. As their small turbojets ignite, their internal electronics begin to work a miracle of physics. They broadcast a specific electronic signature that mimics the exact radar cross-section of a full-sized F-16 Fighting Falcon. To any radar operator, these aren't small drones. They are a massive, aggressive strike package. Inside the Russian S-400 command van near Sevastopol, the atmosphere shifts from routine boredom to sheer terror in 3 milliseconds. The radar screens, which were clear just moments ago, are now strobing with 12 high-speed contacts screaming toward the Kerch Bridge at Mach 0.9. Contact multiple vampires, 12 F-16s inbound, the Russian operator screams. This is the fog of war at its most expensive. The Russian commander faces a split-second dilemma. If he waits to verify the targets, he risks the destruction of the bridge. If he fires, he exposes his position. He chooses the latter. Engage launch all batteries. In the dark Crimean night, the S-400 tubes erupt. $4 million interceptors roar into the sky, chasing digital ghosts. This is the ultimate bad ROI. Russia is firing its most advanced multi-million-dollar missiles at $120,000 decoys. But the real cost isn't the money, it's the radiation. By turning on their high-powered engagement radars, the Russians have just lit a flare in a dark room. While the S-400s are busy chasing phantoms, the pilot of Viper 1 sees exactly what he was hunting for. The AGM-88 HARM, high-speed anti-radiation missile in his store's management system, achieves a handshake with the Russian radar. Viper 1 Magnum, AGM-88 away. The HARM is a kamikaze seeker. It doesn't need a pilot to guide it. It simply follows the Russian radar beam directly back to the transmitter like a moth to a flame. On the A290 highway, the Panzer S-1 escorting the Iskander convoy has just activated its fire control radar to protect the trucks. It's a fatal mistake. The HARM missile traveling at Mach 2 covers the distance in seconds. The Russian Panzer operator sees a high-speed blip appearing on his short-range display, but the laws of physics are against him. A 30-ton vehicle cannot dodge a supersonic projectile. The impact is surgical. The AGM-88's warhead, filled with thousands of tungsten cubes, detonates just inches above the Panzer's radar array. The explosion doesn't just destroy the truck, it shreds the brain of the convoy's defense. The high-powered microwave emitters of the Krasuka 4 electronic warfare system, deprived of their air defense cover, are now screaming into an empty sky. The electronic umbrella has been ripped wide open. The invisible convoy is now standing naked on a highway in the middle of the night. The GPS jammers are offline, the radar is a smoking wreck, and the Russian soldiers are left staring into the dark, realizing that the ghosts they were fighting were just a distraction for the precision strike assets already skimming the tree lines. The path is now clear for the thermal hunters, and they are exactly 60 seconds from contact. 4:10 a.m. The A290 highway is now a blind corridor of fire and shadow. With the Panzer radar neutralized, the electronic umbrella has been ripped away, but the danger is far from over. Skimming just 50 feet above the frozen tree line, the real strike package is moving in 10 LUT long-range stealth drones and 10 thermal hunter FPVs flying in a tight silent formation. This is nap of the Earth flying at its most extreme. At this altitude, the drones are physically hiding behind the terrain, staying beneath the detection floor of any remaining long-range sensors. But suddenly a new variable enters the kill box, one that doesn't rely on long-range radar. A Russian Mi-28. Night Hunter attack helicopter patrolling the secondary sector sweeps its high-intensity thermal searchlight across the tree line. The Mi-28 is a flying tank specifically designed to hunt in total darkness. Its nose-mounted optic catches a tiny flickering heat signature from the lead LUT drone's engine. High above the pilot of the Ukrainian F-16, Viper 1 spots the helicopter's thermal bloom on his display. His voice cuts through the encrypted radio channel with urgent clarity. Viper 1 to LUT lead, break low. You've got a Night Hunter on your 6 locking in. In the Russian cockpit, the Igla-V missile seeker head begins to chirp a high-pitched, hungry tone that means it has found a heat source. The Russian pilot squeezes the trigger. The missile streaks off the rail, accelerating to Mach 2 in a heartbeat. But the Ukrainian drone operator doesn't try to outrun the missile. He outsmarts the physics of the seeker. He pushes the joystick forward, sending the LUTI into a desperate high-speed dive toward a concrete viaduct on the A290 highway. The drone lurches downward, threading the needle directly under the massive concrete support beams of the bridge. This is a violation of every law of flight safety, but it is a masterclass in tactical survival. By flying under the bridge, the drone masks its engine heat against the cold, massive thermal mass of the concrete and the ground clutter. The Igla-V missile, blinded by the sudden loss of a clear thermal contrast, goes stupid. Its internal logic cannot distinguish the tiny heat signature of the drone from the background noise of the Earth. The missile whizzes past the bridge, missing the drone's tail by less than 5 feet before exploding harmlessly in an empty field. Talk about a heart-stopping near miss. That LUT drone, $15,000 of cutting-edge Ukrainian carbon fiber, was literally staring down the barrel of a Russian Igla-V missile, screaming in at Mach 2. On the operator's screen back in the bunker, the feed fills with the glowing exhaust plume of the missile. It's closing fast. The Mi-28 pilot has a solid lock. He can almost taste the kill. His thermal sight paints the LUT bright orange against the cold night. He squeezes the trigger. But here's where Ukrainian engineering earns its paycheck. That composite body, built with almost no metal, no hot exhaust trail, no radar reflecting corners, suddenly drops its thermal signature to almost nothing as the drone dives hard toward the tree line. To the Russian pilot, it's like his target just vanished. 1 second it's there burning bright on his screen, the next, poof, gone, swallowed by the shadows of the earth. He banks hard, searchlight sweeping the darkness, cursing into his mic. He's hunting a ghost that was never really there. Back in the Ukrainian control room, the operator's hands are shaking on the sticks. Sweat rolls down his forehead. The missile streaks past the drone by mere feet, close enough that the camera feed shakes from the shockwave. He lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That was too damn close, he mutters. The room erupts in nervous laughter and fist bumps. One drone down would have been acceptable. Losing the lead bird this early, that could have ended the whole show. Because that near miss didn't just save one drone, it saved the entire mission. The Mi-28 is now circling the wrong patch of sky, chasing shadows. The Panzer crews are reloading, wondering what the hell just happened. And the path to the convoy, it's wide open. The thermal hunters are closing in, cameras locked on those glowing heat signatures that Russia couldn't hide. The thermal truth is about to get very, very loud. 4:15 a.m. Despite the destruction of the Panzer escort, the Russian Krasuka 4 electronic warfare station is screaming at full power, flooding the 2.4 and 5.8 GHz bands with massive amounts of white noise. In the Ukrainian control bunker, the video feeds from the FPV drones begin to grain out into static. To a traditional drone unit, this would be the end of the mission, a radio frequency dead zone where the steel umbrella finally wins. But these aren't traditional drones. These are the thermal hunters. As the manual radio link severs the onboard AI processor inside each FPV drone takes over. This is the terminal lock. The drones transition from human-controlled tools to autonomous hunters. Through the drone's internal thermal sensor, the world isn't a dark highway. It's a high-contrast map of heat. In the freezing December air, the 6 Iskander launchers are glowing like small stars. Think about the physics. 40 tons of specialized steel. Massive diesel engines and high-pressure hydraulic systems act like giant thermal batteries. Even with the engines off, they radiate heat for hours. They are physically incapable of hiding from a sensor designed to find exactly that. The Krasuka 4 is fighting a war that ended 10 minutes ago. It's trying to jam a signal that the drone no longer needs. The lead FPV drone identifies the highest thermal signature in the column, a massive fuel bowser positioned right next to 2 Iskander transloaders. The drone's internal display shifts from a cold blue-white to a violent strobing red as it locks on. Target acquired. Autonomous terminal dive initiated. The drone executes a 120-mile-per-hour kamikaze plunge. The POV on the recording zooms in on the fuel truck's chassis. Total silence for a millisecond. Then contact. The shape-charged warhead detonates and the Monroe effect takes over. The jet of molten copper moving at 7,000 meters per second punches through the fuel tank like it's made of wet paper. The result isn't just a fire. It's a thermal event of catastrophic proportions. A massive orange fireball erupts, rising 150 feet into the night sky. The sheer heat of the initial blast triggers a secondary detonation chain. The spare Iskander parts and solid fuel boosters being carried on the transloaders ignite. The sound is a series of deep rhythmic thuds. These aren't just trucks blowing up. These are the crown jewels of the Russian missile force disintegrating. The pressure waves are so intense that they shatter the windshields of every vehicle within 200 yards. Their billion-dollar jamming equipment is still spinning perfectly intact and perfectly useless. They are watching 8 to 10 support trucks and 4 multi-million-dollar launchers turn into twisted, glowing skeletons of steel. The A-290 highway is no longer a supply route. It's a 500-yard graveyard of Russian strategic ambition. The New Year's Eve fireworks haven't just started early, they've just lit the strategic bonfire for Russia's Southern Iskander Brigade. At 4:25 a.m., the A-290 highway has transformed from a strategic artery into a corridor of burning wreckage. The surviving remnants of the convoy, 2 damaged Iskander launchers, and a handful of support trucks are flooring it, racing toward the final checkpoint before the Kerch Bridge. To the Russian commanders, the bridge is more than just a piece of infrastructure. It is the only exit from a nightmare. As the survivors scream toward the bridge approach, the Russian military makes one last desperate attempt to save their assets. A Tor M2 air defense system, one of the most advanced mobile SAM platforms in the world, swings into position. Its 9A331 electronically steered array radar begins searching the sky, desperate to find the swarm. But the Russians are still fighting a ghost. 100 miles away, the Ukrainian F-16s are still on station, their electronic warfare suites pumping out high-intensity jamming. On the Tor M2's radar screen, the sky is a mess of flickering strobe interference. This is the electronic blindfold. By the time the Russian operator manages to filter the noise, the second swarm of drones is already in its terminal dive. This final strike is surgical. The drones aren't just targeting the trucks, they are targeting the bottleneck. The lead drone locks onto a temporary maintenance hangar located right at the bridge approach, a facility currently packed with the very spare parts Russia was trying to salvage. The impact is a blinding flash of white-hot kinetic energy. The hangar, filled with high-pressure hydraulic fluid and solid rocket propellant components, doesn't just burn, it suffers a high-velocity cook-off. A secondary shockwave ripples through the concrete of the highway approach. The drones don't drop the bridge itself, but they achieve something much more clever. They compromise the structural transition zone. The intense heat and the force of the secondary explosions cause the asphalt to buckle and the support columns of the approach road to crack. In a single 40-minute operation, Ukraine hasn't just destroyed a convoy, they have paralyzed the main supply line to Crimea. Now let's look at the thermal truth of the aftermath. 5 of the 6 Iskander launchers are now twisted, blackened skeletons. These aren't just vehicles. They are the long-range hammer of the Russian southern front. With 60% of their force already gone from last week and another 30% neutralized tonight, the Iskander brigade is effectively extinct. By damaging the bridge approach, Ukraine has created a logistical thrombus. The Kerch Bridge, the backbone of Russian supplies, is now blocked for days. Every tank, every shell, and every fuel truck destined for the southern front is now sitting in a massive stagnant line, waiting for repairs that may never come. This is the ultimate ROI masterclass. Ukraine used 20 drones and 2 F-16 sorties to force Russia into a strategic dilemma. To replace the Iskanders, Moscow will have to use its terrifyingly expensive Kinjal missiles weapons that cost 10 times more and exist in much smaller numbers. Ukraine just forced the Kremlin to spend its retirement fund on a tactical firefight, from a near miss under a bridge to the total obliteration of a ghost convoy. This mission proves one thing in 2026, there is nowhere left to hide. So which piece of engineering impressed you more, the F-16's Ghost Fleet decoys, or the FPV's autonomous thermal homing type Viper or Ghost in the comments below? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next deep dive into the technology changing the rules of war. Bye for now.